Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
The date that Franklin Roosevelt was referring to, of course, 80 years ago next Tuesday, December 7th, 1941, the surprise Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor on an otherwise ordinary Sunday morning with just the typical partly cloudy skies that time of year in that part of Hawaii. Now, in 1941, Hawaii was a U.S. territory, statehood still 18 years away. But as early as the 1870s, the U.S. military had scoped out the islands for defensive and commercial potential. And Pearl Harbor, on the south side of Oahu, about 10 miles northwest of Honolulu, fit the bill. With persistent northeast trade winds most of the year, this part of Oahu lies in the rain shadow of a mountain range. As those northeasterly winds downslope out of the higher elevations, they dry out. And in fact, Honolulu averages only about 17 inches of rain per year. Nearly all of Pennsylvania averages at least twice that in liquid equivalent. To pull off the attack on Pearl Harbor, a fleet of 6 aircraft carriers and about 50 other ships left northern Japan on November 26, 1941, and headed almost due east across the Pacific, reaching a point about 1,000 miles north-northwest of Hawaii on December 3rd. All of this in nearly complete radio silence. From there, the fleet headed south, reaching a staging area about 200 miles north of Oahu early on December 7th. The map of surface pressure at that time looked like this. The Japanese fleet at point X, the red and orange, identifies a belt of high pressure north of Hawaii. Clockwise winds around this familiar subtropical high produced the familiar northeast winds on Hawaii. Often you get a deck of low clouds with the Pacific high. Indeed, Japanese planes reported as much as they approached Oahu, but the clouds broke as they neared Pearl Harbor, the attack beginning shortly before 8 a.m. local time. The attack lasted only an hour and 15 minutes and was carried out by more than 350 Japanese aircraft. More than 2,400 Americans were killed and 1,178 wounded. The attack damaged or destroyed 19 U.S. ships, including 8 battleships and more than 300 aircraft. Fortunately, all 3 of the Navy's Pacific Fleet aircraft carriers, Lexington, Saratoga, and Enterprise, were not at Pearl Harbor at the time. Enterprise was scheduled to arrive there the morning of December 7th, but was delayed by weather. Enterprise went on to play a major combat role in the Pacific War, earning 20 battle stars, the most of any U.S. warship in World War II. One of the battleships damaged at Pearl Harbor was the USS Pennsylvania. After a 3-month repair, it returned to action in 1942. On August 12, 1945, 3 days before Japan surrendered, the Pennsylvania was extensively damaged at Okinawa. 2 of her 14-inch guns are now on display at the Pennsylvania Military Museum in Boalsburg, near State College.